Welcome to the Summit Yoga Beyond Exercise, conversations to heal and lead us into the new paradigm of peace, harmony, and prosperity. Today's guest is Elaine O'Rourke. Elaine has been teaching yoga and yoga therapeutics for 18 years. She leads national and international retreats. She's a recording artist with 2 CDs out there of her original work. She is a sound healer who uses singing bowls, gongs, and her voice. And she also has a live show called Ostomy and IBD Life because of her personal experience with Crohn's disease and now with an ostomy. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Hi, Elaine. Welcome to the online summit series, Yoga Beyond Exercise. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this chat.
Yeah, me too. So just a quick introduction beyond what I've already done. I just want to share with the audience that I know Elaine from my hometown in Massachusetts, not the born hometown, the chosen hometown. And we have a mutual friend who most recently had some severe health issues. And those health issues caused her to have her colon and some small intestines removed, which was very, very dramatic. Her and I are cold ocean swimmers together. And so, you know, I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that she was in the hospital going through this traumatic experience. And then, you know, we saw each other at the beach when I still can't believe how quickly she came back into the ocean. But she was sharing with me about her ostomy. And I said, I had no idea what that was. And then she showed it to me. And she was sharing with me that, Elaine, you've been helping coach her from, you know, having what seemed like, you know, a healthy body to this moment in time when this, you know, 39-year-old woman was now, you know, dealing with this, you know, life shift. So maybe you can share with us, like, what is an ostomy and like your journey from like how it happened for you, because Elaine is a yoga teacher and a sound healer and a singer and so many things. So what inspired me was that you could have this life-changing experience and not have it, you know, infiltrate your life and actually thrive in this life.
Yes, so I myself have an ileostomy, which means I have my colon completely removed, diverted. Some people just have it diverted, and my waste products, my poop, goes into this bag that is on my belly. And I also have had my rectum removed, and that was also due to Crohn's disease, same as our mutual friend. So I had Crohn's disease for about 13 years until it became life-threatening, and that's why I ended up getting an ostomy. And I myself had no idea what an ostomy was before it was brought up to me 5 days before my surgery, that this is probably something I would have to try because I was not getting any better and they were out of options. So I tried it for pretty much a year, but my Crohn's disease was still super active in my body. So I opted to make mine permanent. So I had my colon and my rectum completely removed in 2006. So I'm now 14 years with it permanent. So through this, and then our mutual friend, who's also a yoga teacher, and I knew that she had Crohn's. I'd worked with her a little bit with that, but she ended up getting an ostomy, and so she's been going through my program. So basically, I've taken everything from my life so far. So I'm a yoga teacher, I'm an EFT, emotional freedom technique practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, sound healer, and then life experiences, which is the biggest teacher of all. And I've put it all in a package, basically, and I now am so honored to be able to work with people one-on-one who have Crohn's disease, IBD, who have ostomies, so that they can thrive. Like our mutual friend is doing really well, but not everyone does because it's so scary. There's so much stigma about it. The body image issues, because I mean, you've got a bag on you. It's really hard. So there's an awful lot of mental and emotional, as well as physical issues and problems that people face. So I really help people to get back into their lives. And in fact, my ostomy program is called Surviving to Thriving. And then I have another program, a separate one for people with IBD. And so it's really just to help people to get back into their lives, hold their hands, cheer them on, and to work with all of the tools that I have learned over all of these years from when I started my own yoga journey. And even before that, like everything in life has a lesson there if we're willing to look deep enough. So yeah, so I feel really honored, and it's something I feel so passionate about, because I mean, I love teaching yoga, but working with people in this way is the most fulfilling thing I think I've ever done. Like everything else I love, but when I get on calls with people and see how they transform and how helpful it is for someone to talk, just to talk to someone else who's been through it all, who knows, like I know how it feels. Like, you know, it took me a long time to accept how I looked, even though I was forced into being on stage straight away, to standing up in front of a room full of yoga students in tight yoga pants, and no one ever knew, but like you just feel like really self-conscious. So it's been my pleasure to be able to work with people in this capacity from a holistic standpoint. And then I think, oh, your other question was, what is an ostomy? So for those of you watching, an ostomy is, so there's many reasons why people get one, and there's different types of ones. So you might end up getting one from Crohn's or colitis, ulcerative colitis. You might get it from having an accident, some trauma to the abdominal area. It could be from bladder cancer, from rectal cancer. It's like there's many different reasons. And you'll be surprised the amount of people out there with one that you have no idea about. So, you know, a lot of the time people suffer in silence, which I hate that, because you don't have to, right? There's always, you know, whether it's support groups or, you know, working with myself. You know, I'm not the hugest support group person. I kind of prefer the individual for myself. That's always worked better. So, you know, it always, I really love when people can get that first step going and taking on these challenges and work with the transformation that can happen. Because to be honest, getting an ostomy was probably the best and most transformative thing that has ever happened in my life. And I have learned so much about myself, and I have worked through so many different emotional issues. And like the biggest trauma for me, you know, was like Crohn's disease. It's not like I came from a traumatic background of stuff, but we all have stuff, right? We all have our shit to deal with, and some of us look at it a little bit more than others. So, you know, how we deal with things is really important, and to be able to give a voice to how you're feeling and to be able to express it rather than to suppress it. Because we know when we suppress things, then that is going to lead to more disease down the road, or more emotional roller coaster rides, which are never fun.
You could talk to us about your own yoga journey, you know, from the time before yoga and through the trajectory of like where you're at now. I think that's always interesting for people, since it's like, how did you become a yoga teacher? Like, what was the inspiration, you know?
So my yoga journey, I would, first of all, if you had asked me 20 years ago, if I would be doing yoga or a yoga teacher, I would have laughed in your face and gone, no way, that's just weird, right? And this is before, like now yoga is like an everyday word, like, but you know, 20 years ago, it wasn't. So when I started, I was not self-aware at all. I had zero body awareness. I was always very flexible, but you know, I had no physical body awareness. I had no idea of any of the concepts or philosophy of yoga or thinking, outside the box, because I did always think outside the box, but I grew up here in Ireland, where I am at the moment, in a Catholic family, Catholic society for the most part. So when I came to yoga, and especially the philosophy, I was like, oh my God, this is talking to me. Like, it made sense. It finally made sense. And even before I took my first yoga class, I started to, think about things more, in a different way when I was traveling in Australia back in 1996. And I was very much just open to the synchronicities of life, and it kind of just opened me up again, because I came from Ireland, I moved to the States, and I lived there for 5 years. And to me, the States is a place where there's so much fear instilled in society. And so when I went to Australia, it was complete opposite. So it was really nice to undo a lot of that, even though I had no idea, like on any conscious or subconscious level, what was going on. So when I was in Australia, I remember picking up that book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and starting to read that. So that's a more like a Buddhist book, right? Buddhist, yeah. And so I was kind of like, oh, this really speaks to me. This is really cool. And so when I started doing yoga, the philosophy just really spoke to me, even though at the start I had no idea what they were talking about, because it was like learning another language. So I came from a person who was, party, 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 just get through life, rah, 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 have a good time, to suddenly, waking up a little bit more, thinking about things, looking through different lenses, and really getting into my body more. So it was interesting then, like after a few years of really immersing in yoga. So I became qualified as a yoga teacher after 9 months of just starting yoga. So I was clueless. So God bless all of my early yoga students for sticking with me. But, you learn as you go. But through that, and it was interesting because when I started to really get deeper into my yoga practice is when my body actually fell apart. So, but in a way, it was like everything had to fall apart in order for me to really wake up and to really start a new life. Of course, I would prefer not to have an ostomy bag, but that's how it had to happen, because I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't really making the changes perhaps that I needed to make on more emotional levels, and to really have a good look at myself and figure out who I was and embrace that, and to work through like so much. So my yoga practice came from basically going to a community center in Jamaica Plain, and it's kind of like an area of Boston. And my first teacher, like, we'd all just show up in our sweatpants. You barely had a yoga mat, and it was so informal. We'd just be around in a circle. It was so chill, but it was amazing. And I loved that real chill aspect. And then when yoga began to become more popular and everyone's in their friggin', Lululemons and whatnot, I was kind of like, oh, what's all this? Became like this image thing. So that part of it, I don't embrace too much. And, I like to make the practice fun. Like when I teach, if I can just put a smile on someone's face, if I can make an idiot of myself, then I've done my job, basically. And also on the journey of yoga, while I was really sick, the most important part of the practice was the breath, the breathing practices. That's what got me out of bed in the hospital. That's what got me through so much, because I couldn't move my body. I mean, I could barely walk. Felt like I was in the body of a 90-year-old woman. So all I could do was focus on my breath. That's it. I would lie in bed in my sister's house because I couldn't look after myself anymore, and that's all I could do. All I could do was just breathe and focus on that, and it was that was the lifesaver, to be honest. That and getting an ostomy.
You mentioned that, dis-ease in the body, in your case, it was Crohn's, stems from some emotional issues that we as beings aren't necessarily looking at. And I know that for me, maybe it seems like I have a healthy body, but I also have a lot of emotions that need to be dug into in order for me to keep this healthy body. So for those listeners who are listening, who are like all of us, who have these emotional things that need to be looked at so that they don't come into a fight or flight state of dis-ease, maybe you can talk about that, since you have so much experience with it.
Sure. So, first of all, let me just back up, because Crohn's disease, we don't know what causes it. So, and some people are, born with it, have it from a very early age. Sometimes there's a very small population that it is hereditary. Sometimes it can be environmental. But I think with everything, there is a certain emotional component with most diseases. So I just wanted to be clear about that. And that is where the transformation can happen, because unless you deal with that, something's going to come up for most of us. Okay, not for everyone. That, some people just get through life and their physical bodies are really strong, and they are very fortunate in that way. So with EFT, emotional freedom technique, it helps the body. It's really simple. You tap on these different points. So like the inner eyebrow, the outer eyebrow, under the eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbones, the side, and the head. They're the basic points. And just by tapping on these areas, you're actually tapping on acupressure points. So you're already moving energy. You're helping the body come into that place of rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system. And when you're doing that and tapping, like you're doing something physically, then you're talking, you're dialoguing, say, about what the problem is. And actually, what I love about EFT is it gives you permission to actually say the negative. Sometimes in the more holistic world, a lot of people with affirmations, like affirmations are great. So, I believe in myself. Well, if a part of you doesn't believe in yourself, then that affirmation is actually useless. It's great to say it, but, if a part of you is going like, that's the biggest load of rubbish, well, then EFT is the part that wants to get into that place, that part of you that's saying, that's rubbish. You don't believe in yourself, because remember what happened when you were 5 and you fell off the stage when you were, doing a dance or something, right? So it's to clear that memory, the emotion that's held in that is current day holding you back from actually believing in yourself. And that's just one very simple example. So we all have these things. And so by dialoguing and figuring out, by saying what the problem is, because we have to face the fact, like if we're feeling a negative emotion, we have to address that. We can't just sugarcoat it and say, oh, I feel fine, everything's wonderful in my life, when everything is not wonderful in your life. And your inner self knows that. So EFT gives you that permission to go in and say, even though my life is falling apart, I am right now trying my best in my everyday life. So you kind of do the negative and the positive, and then you work through it. So you're dialoguing, you're talking about what the problem is, and then and you can feel it within yourself when it feels like you're shifting, you're reframing whatever the problem might be into a more positive place. And then you can see more clearly what the real problem might be, because oftentimes we don't know why we're upset about something. We don't know why we're getting so worked up about something. So by being in that place of rest and digest, it can give you access to these emotions without falling apart, right? The emotional content goes up, you might start crying, but then it's like, oh, then you feel fine really fast, rather than having a breakdown for an hour. You might just have 30 seconds of like, oh gosh, that was a lot of emotion, and then you get on with it. So it's really cool. And that's very simplified, very simplified explanation. But the way it works is amazing. And when I've worked with clients, it's not just through people with Crohn's or with ostomies. I work with all sorts of people. It's amazing to see what happens in a session and what comes up, what's released, and to see, someone feel a lot lighter after just doing some tapping.
Awesome. That's amazing. So I've used EFT over the years and had, it's how do you tell? I guess you were saying like when you're emotionally charged about something, it takes you into the neutral place. So how do you dig deeper when you get to the neutral place, when you're trying to get to like kind of the root?
Well, it's like with everything, like when you think of a building, right? You can start off the top floors where you might feel like, okay, this is what the where the problem is, or this is where I'm feeling really upset. But the root is down there at the foundational level. So, sometimes it'll take a while. It's like, okay, peel off, it's like the layers of the onions, right? You peel back a layer, or you take off like the top floor of the building and you keep working your way down. So sometimes you can get really lucky and hit the nail in the head and figure it all out. But most of us, especially when you start to do this sort of work, it's great if you can start doing it when you're a kid. But most of us, if we've been hanging on to baggage for years, it's going to take a little bit of time. So there can be so many different layers and different aspects to whatever the issue might be. And it could be that one issue is linked to another, linked to another. So that's where I always describe it like detective work. You kind of go in and try and like find out, oh, okay, this is a lead to something else, and to really find out what is the bottom problem, pull that out, and then everything else falls away. It's really quite amazing. But it takes time, sometimes, but it doesn't take, to me, it can be, and this isn't, to offend anyone or anything like that, but it can be a little bit more effective than just talking through a problem. Sometimes when we're talking through stuff, we're actually we're setting that groove. So on a record player, the old records, you get stuck in the same groove, you're making that deeper and deeper by talking about a trauma over and over, unless you're actually releasing the energy of it. So that's what I love about it, like to be able to tell your story without getting upset every time, to be able to bring up, a hard time without breaking down in tears. It really is transformational in that respect.
So what if like you're not sure like what your stuff is? Would you just start tapping
Yeah,
on
you just start
anything?
tapping. Yeah, you can just start tapping, going like, I'm really stressed. I don't know why I'm stressed. I'm having a really hard time. I'm having a really stressful day. I don't know why I'm breaking down every so often. I don't know what's wrong with me. So you can keep it. And then like once you're doing it for a while, then just by saying the words out loud, and especially when you have someone, that's why it's so great to work with someone, to like have an EFT practitioner guide you through it, because they can actually find the words for you, right? They'll have a bit of conversation. They use your words, which is really empowering. So they can guide you through. So when I have a client, I'll kind of like ask like, what's going on? Or, someone with an ostomy or Crohn's, we'll talk dialogue a little bit, and then I'll kind of get going. We'll just start tapping. Or if I see that someone's upset, I'll just have them start tapping. It's that simple. And then it's amazing. Then the words you might actually find, okay, one thing leads to another, leads to another. And like, okay, bingo. Now we got the, what the issue is. So
What's
it can be fascinating like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because I think that it looks interesting, and when you haven't done it before, and then when sometimes your emotions are deeply hidden, it it doesn't feel like you're getting it doesn't feel like you're getting, and we live in such a result driven world, like somehow I need to have this big explosion in order for something else to happen. But in my experience, it's been quite subtle, and it hasn't had some explosiveness. I
Y-
just tap in, pardon the pun, but to myself, and then I feel the charge. And then I just, because I've been doing it for so long, I just naturally tap.
mhm.
And
Yeah, and that's why it's nice to be, guided by, a professional practitioner, because there's tons of tutorials out there, and I believe as part of this summit, people can sign up for an EFT, the stress release and breathing one, where that you can actually really feel the difference. Just tapping, you can feel the difference in the expansion of your breath. So I like that one because that really shows, that's kind of like if you can feel it in yourself for most people. So it's just another tool, and I think it's so important for us to all find like something that really resonates with you. And it's just helpful saying things out loud and witnessing, having someone else witness those words. Because with the EFT, if you're working with someone, I would say the words and then you would repeat them after me. So it's really powerful hearing your own words through someone else's voice and then you say them. So I would say, okay, Julie, we're going to start tapping. So repeat after me. I'm really stressed right now. And then you would say it.
I'm really stressed right now.
I'm having a really hard time right now.
I'm having a really hard time right now.
So much is going on.
So much is going on.
Right. So if I was working with someone one-on-one, we would be talking about what their problem is, and I'd be using their words. So it's very powerful, at least it has been in my experience, to hear my own words coming out of someone else's mouth and then me repeating them back.
Yeah, I can see that. I've never actually worked with a practitioner with it before.
Oh, we should do a session.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like, wow, I really see what you mean about the having the other person and
Yeah.
reflecting that. It's like that when two or more gather, it's powerful, just like what
Yeah.
we're doing with this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing, it's like it's someone else holding space for you. And, it's always, well, at least with me, it's always sacred space. And it's really powerful for us to be able to witness what someone else is going through. And also, I think, as the client, for someone to witness what you're going through and to be able to, if someone's proficient in being able to hold sacred space, I think you can really feel that as a client as well.
Yeah, I can really feel that.
Yeah.
That's very powerful. Yes.
Yeah. And sacred space, since I just brought it up, sacred space is, it's so important. It's something that can kind of sound a little woo-woo out there to some people. But, it's really, and that's something I learned also through my yoga practice and teaching over the years of being able to hold space, because it's tiring. Like after I teach a class, like it's energizing, but I also really need to retreat and to respect my own boundaries, that like after a class I need to just like have a little quiet time, because it's not just teaching, right? You're holding space for a group of people to come together, and you never know what's going to happen. I know for me, like my eye pillow at the end, like when I go to classes for Shavasana and I have my eye pillow on, or even in my own practice, there's so many tears in that eye pillow, because after moving your body, the whole somatic experience, and that's why it's so important to move, that's when the magic can happen, or that's when the big release can happen. It's like, why, like oftentimes I've been lying there on my back and like, why am I crying? I don't even know why I'm crying, but I've just moved my body. I've moved energy and it needs that release out. And that's what's so important about the physical asana practice of yoga, so that you can let yourself heal and just rest. My God, I'm doing a lot of resting right now. I'm quarantining. I just got home to Ireland last week, so I'm still quarantining, and I'm residing in a couple of rooms in the house. My mom has the other couple of rooms, but I'm sleeping so much because I realized I haven't been looking after myself that well, and I haven't given myself that time to rest, because it's been like through all of COVID, I've been actually working like a lot with teaching and brainstorming and, doing a lot. And it's so nice to have forced rest. I'm like sleeping, lazing around the place, and it's really good to do. And I'm always telling my clients, rest, do this, do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I wasn't doing that myself, and it feels so good. My body is repairing itself right now, because it was actually feeling really sore from I've been doing a lot of yoga and not enough real rest. and I could feel it in my body over the last month. And I can feel it kind of just unraveling by doing nothing, like very, very little yoga practice. I did a little physical yoga practice this morning, and I taught a class on Saturday, but that's all I've done in a week, which is amazing. So sometimes your body needs that just to do nothing, and I think that's important for people to realize as well, that, um, sometimes you need to just take a break. And it might be taking a break from your yoga practice. Your yoga practice might be just lying down and sleeping more than you usually would, or reading your book.
Yeah, we always think, being busy is somehow equating to success, or
I know. How did that happen?
I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I've realized in this past week, just resting and turning my brain off rather than trying to think, oh, what am I going to do next? What's the next brilliant idea I have to have? And it's been so nice just not to have to do anything at all. But actually, let's get back to, there was another point I wanted to make about sacred space, was with my sound healings that I do, right? That is also really sacred space. So with sound healings, I don't have any of my singing bowls here with me in Ireland, but singing bowls, whether they're Tibetan singing bowls, or I have a whole set of quartz crystal ones as well, and gongs, and I do a lot of mantras with my voice. But that's like sacred space, because people come in and lie down, and that can be a very vulnerable position for people, lying down with the lights off in the dark with other people that they don't know. But it's like holding that space and that energy. And when I'm doing the sound healing, believe me, there is so much energy flying around the room. I can't see energy, and I wish I could, because some things that I hear back after sound healings are amazing. But that's just sacred space, so that people can feel comfortable and letting go and receiving, just receiving the sound, receiving that opportunity to heal at a really deep cellular level, because we're all vibration, everything's vibration. So that's why the sound healings are so amazing. And still don't fully understand how it all works. I don't have that sort of physicist sort of mind. But they are amazing and like really relaxing, because you're basically, I visualize it like the cells of your body are just going everything been thrown up and just landing differently. And there's a lot of research has been done. You can even see it with sound, like through sand, how it like makes all of these different geometric patterns. And the higher the vibration, the quicker the what's the word, the pattern is. And like with what's his name, who did all the science of with water and putting good energy and intentions into water, how you can see the crystals in the water, the formations, like beautiful, with really well intended words, compared to the really negative words, and they're these horrible formations. So holding space for people is really important, but it's also really important to recharge oneself afterwards too.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And it's so great that you're having this experience for yourself right now, so that you can then really share that. It's like we were saying, it's sometimes we know it, and we're telling ourselves and others, but we're not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And life will often give it to us if we need it. And it can give it to us in ways that aren't as comfortable as others. So I'm glad yours is comfortable in the home of your mom in Ireland, and in
Yeah.
all its glory.
And that's a good point when you say comfortable, because the last time I had forced rest like this was when I was deathly ill with Crohn's disease, because I hadn't listened to my body. I hadn't listened to my dreams. I hadn't listened to all of the warning signs that were out there, of what was really going on behind the scenes in my life and what untruth was been told to me, shall we say. So it's so important to take time when you need it rather than being forced into it. Even though I'm being forced into it right now, it's really pleasurable being forced into it. But it's that really great reminder that, you know what, I need to do this more often. I need to restore my body and my mental self more often too. So everyone out there, rest up. It's a good time of year just to chill out a little bit more.
You just said something very inspiring. You said the untruths. Could you talk to us about your experience with the untruth? Because I think it's so important for all of us to get to truth. And I
Mhm.
think your story of Crohn's and yoga and all of that is a great mirror to the picture of truth and how important that is, and how
Sure.
only we can get there ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when of course, having space is a great way to be able to look back at your life and go like, oh, I now see why that happened. So for me, I really wasn't living my truth, because when my Crohn's disease, when I got my last major flare, which led to getting an ostomy, I wasn't seeing the truth about a relationship that I was in, and it was extremely harmful for my body. I was having dreams that were telling me the truth, and I didn't realize that until after the fact. And then when I look back at other things in my life, once I started to make these discoveries, I can see that pattern there. And, sometimes it's really hard to discern what is true and what isn't true, especially when it's coming from another person, when someone else is being completely dishonest to you. It can be very hard to see the truth and what isn't true. So, keep on asking questions. But if you got that gut feeling, like I was having dreams that were telling me what was going on, and I didn't realize that. I wasn't listening to it. And maybe there was a part of me that knew, there was a part of me that knew that it wasn't right. Um, so, we get messages in many different ways. And then, throughout my life, especially over the last, 15 years, learning discernment a lot more and listening to your body, listening to your guides. I'm never a great one for asking other people for their opinions, because that puts you off. It can be helpful in some respect, and it can be good to bounce things off people. But usually we know ourselves what the truth is. We know ourselves, but we want someone else to tell us. Right? Then that's going to be easier.
Oh yeah, it would be so easy to have someone else just tell me stuff. I've tried to do it.
Yeah. People go to, lots of different, healers for this and that. And some of it can be great and it's valuable. And sometimes we really do need a third party. But there's so much that we have within ourselves, but we just haven't learned maybe to trust our own selves. Or maybe that's been my journey, to be able to trust myself and to be able to trust other people. So that's definitely been something that I continually work on. And then, but you can feel it in your bones. And sometimes we just don't want to admit it. So we live in the untrue world because that's easier than dealing with the truth, because dealing with the truth means altering our course. Whereas usually, if we need to alter our course, that's what we should be doing. So life will intervene until we start to go on a different path rather than what is not our truth.
That's what's been my experience. So
Yeah, it's
I
been my
know that I
experience.
have to listen. But
Yeah.
that is the hard part. It's, you just said it again. It's like the seen versus the unseen. And that unseen world can be scary, right? It's like you
Hmm.
don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You just have to trust it, that
So
everything.
much trust, so much trust, and delving into, and I actually love the unknown. Like and I know you're a world traveler as well. Like I love going off and having no idea what's going to happen and not having things mapped out and just seeing where what's going to happen is kind of like this game that you play. But sometimes we're really good at doing it in one part of our life. I'm like, put my backpack on and I'm good to go where I don't know where I'm going. But with other aspects of my life, then that can be scarier to open to that. And at the moment, this is what the world is offering us. Like none of us have any idea what is ever going to transpire in life. And we think, or we're told, from a young age, oh, okay, you do this, 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 this. And some of us, yeah, that might work. Some of us might be like, that doesn't seem like that much fun. So to be able to like unfold our lives without having a preset destination, like it's all like, it's so cliche to say, but it is all about the journey and what you learn along there. And when something isn't working, there's a reason for it. And it can be really scary to start off in another direction. But usually when you do, it's kind of like, oh, wow, had no idea this world out here existed. And you might find out all sorts of things about yourself. That's what's happened with me. Like I never thought I'd be sitting here on this summit with you or teaching yoga or helping people or doing this woo-woo stuff. I still call it woo-woo stuff because it is. I'm always like, oh my God, I do this. This is so woo-woo. Yeah. But it works. It's real. And I've had my amazing experiences of woo-woo-ness in my life that have just made me trust and know that there is so much beyond what we see with our physical eyes. So much.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing point that I agree. Yes. And I thrive in the unseen in parts of my life. And in other parts, it's like actually the thing that is triggering the emotions that I have to look at. Like the technology behind the summit, for instance. I've had all these issues and I'm in fight or flight and I know it. I'm like, it's like I'm just constantly putting out fires and getting by. And anybody listening to this is going to know because you ended up with like 7 emails in your inbox from me. Well, imagine how I felt when that happened. I was like, I'm like with my hose just trying to put everything out. And then I just stopped. I was like, uh, that just has to be okay. But then I had to go on to the next thing. And when I get off the phone with you today, I am going to go lay on in a shavasana like I've never laid in before, because I'm seeing through this conversation that this is a perfect in real time experience to share with the audience of how my higher self is asking me to see some things, and it's giving me some opportunity. It's giving me an opportunity to go deeper in myself. It's not just about technology and putting out technology fires, and it's about me. It's about what I'm going through and how I get to now, because of this opportunity, access the deeper truth within myself. And that's how I noticed that this kind of life journey, it works. You don't know where the opportunity is going to come. We're just living our lives, but we're living it awake to ourselves. I always say like it's an eco-friendly path. There is nothing that isn't used to help ourselves
Mm.
get to the best, highest frequency possible.
Yeah, I love that there's no part of it that isn't unused. It's so true. Every single experience, good or bad, comes into play. And I think it's fascinating, where you are in your life and where I am in my life. Like everything that we've had and experienced along our journeys has brought us to be able to do what we are both doing now, like what you're doing, offering this summit, what I do with my work. And it's exploring, it's expanding, or even though at the time it might be like, oh my God, why did I decide to do this? But like everyone goes through that, but then like at the end it's like, wow, I just learned so much. That was hard, but I just learned so much. And that's why we're here. That's our lives. We're here to learn and experience. That's it. If we're not experiencing, then it's pretty dull and boring.
And it's so true because infinity is constantly expanding. So there is no like end result. There is just expansion into basically the unknown because I don't know what my future is going to hold. I know that I can vision it and I know what I want to feel in it, but I don't need to know how it's going to look. I
Hmm.
know that I want to feel a certain way or experience life, it's usually for me like in an emotional way, like a stable, calm.
Right.
I like to have a laugh, but I don't need it to be chaotic.
Yeah. I know. It's all, as I'm sure so many of your other speakers have said as well. And it's all about like finding the balance. Like we know we're not going to get through life just all in a bed of roses. It's like there's the bit of everything, and that's where we learn. It's like usually when the shit is hitting the fan, that's when we are learning a lot. And then when nothing's going on, it's like I always say, oh gosh, take a breather here. It's okay because I know something else is going to come up, so just enjoy those lulls. Sometimes you might feel like, oh God, I'm not creating or I'm not doing anything, but sometimes that's just like, oh, it's just time to catch your breath and to rest, take Shavasana.
Yeah. I think that's such a brilliant point too, especially what's going on in the world right now with so many people, like everything is being shaken to the core. Nobody knows what's going on. But I am always questioning everything. And I think it is so important now more than ever that that is what's being called of us. It is a deep calling to self-inquiry, with quarantines and coming back to the self and like where is your role and place in that. I think that it's such an amazing place that we are in if we can see the opportunity to access that part of ourselves that's true, and it's true for me, doesn't have to be true for anybody else.
Exactly. It can be a great time to really look at your life deeply and see what's working, what isn't. Like we're a lot of people are been forced into situations that they never thought that they would be. So it's always adapt, adapt, adapt. That's what we have to do. That's what we do as humans. But we're very stubborn and we want to just stay in our old patterns. But it's changed. We can't. This is a new pattern. It's a new way of being, and you got to embrace it. It's like everything changes all the time, and this is just accelerated so much.
Yeah. And then it's like really taking inventory about how we want to live, right? Like what feels natural. And I think that's kind of the point that we were saying, like within the self is like what feels good inside and like, does it match my external? And if it doesn't, then what do I need to look at internally, to strike that?
Yeah, I know, because it can be hard. Like these big questions of life. Like sometimes it's like we may not have access to the answers right now, and sometimes it's just being in the void, in the shunya, just in that space of nothingness. Like we can expend a lot of energy trying to figure like, oh my God, what am I meant to do? Oh my God, I thought I'd have it all figured out at this stage. Oh, what is my purpose in life? And some people know, and it's really clear. And then there's others, such as myself. I'm like, I have no idea. Like some days I think I got it, and then other times I'm like, I don't know about that. But you keep on keep on putting things out there, learning. It's just, you don't know, as you said earlier, you don't know where something is going to take you. So, if we can learn to let go of the attachment to an idea, it's like you have an idea, it's like, wow, that's great, and see where it goes. It might be a dead end for now, but we always use everything that we have learned. But this is a great opportunity to really evaluate our lives and, see what makes you happy. Figure it out. This is the time to start figuring it out and realizing there's probably a lot of things we thought that we needed in life that we don't need. It's we can really simplify a lot, I feel, and hopefully this is helping people to realize that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, Elaine, this was wonderful. I am so happy that you could come on with us today. I know your free gift has an EFT technique, so people can click on that. It's right in the email when they go to the page where they're watching this video. And yeah, and is there anything else you want to share before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. Also, for anyone, if anyone's watching that does have an ostomy or Crohn's and colitis, you can also, I think you have those links as well, Julie, that people that have a free download as well, a free guide for people with ostomy. So you can check out the email and get that little gift for yourself. But that's it. Just take care of yourself and give yourself permission to rest and enjoy the simple things in life.
Awesome. Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Julie.